There are many claims surrounding the apparent life of the real Jesus. Some of the most interesting are those that evolve around connections to ancient Egypt and even the probability the real life Jesus was of Egyptian descent and the rightful Pharaoh in hiding in Jerusalem. How valid these claims might be is clearly open to debate, but they are indeed food for thought and not as outrageous as you might suspect.
So, like a curious traveler on a quest, we embark upon a journey of information. Stay with us for a ride into knowledge.
And without a doubt, one of the most intriguing points on today's list is the discovery of the Alpha Omega symbols on the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. They were found by researchers in 2018. This discovery was strange as there has been no mention of these markings in any previous literature on ancient Egypt. The Alpha Omega symbols are the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. They also have a significant meaning in Christianity, often symbolizing Jesus. The discoverers believe that the discovery of these symbols in the King's Chamber connects Jesus to the ancient Egyptian culture. They suggest the Greek alphabet was likely a carryover from the writings of a lost, unknown civilization, one that also influenced such civilizations as the ancient Egyptians and the Mesopotamians. It's widely accepted that Jesus spent 2 years of his life learning the ancient teachings and wisdom of the Egyptian priest. It's likely he was made familiar with such things as the movement of the stars and planets. It is also likely he learned various initiation rituals, perhaps very similar to those of modern Freemasonry today. Now, many suggest Jesus employed and taught such wisdom, and he did this discreetly and only to those who were aware of their importance. Many see the rising of Lazarus being such a Masonic type ritual, one that Jesus would have learned in those Egyptian mystery schools. It is also interesting that Helenopolis, where he studied, was a center for worshiping the sun god Ra. Sun worship is something else that connects Christianity and ancient Egypt. According to several researchers, part of the reason Jesus was taught in the mystery schools of Helenopolis is because of his Egyptian heritage. Indeed, some suggest that Jesus was very likely a prince or a pharaoh in waiting. Ultimately, he was the descendant of a wealthy Egyptian family with a claim to kingship. There are plenty of discrete clues in biblical writings about the apparent high, wealthy status of the real Jesus. Perhaps the best example would have been at the wedding at Cana. It's been put forward by some researchers that Jesus was not merely attending the event, but that it was his wedding. One of the main reasons for this is when Jesus asked his mother to get more wine. It was the tradition at the time for the person whose wedding it was should also provide the food and drink. We might also look to Joseph of Arimathea, who also enjoyed high status with both the Jewish priest and the upper echelon of the Roman rulers. It is claimed that Joseph was Jesus' uncle, which would suggest a family of significant wealth and influence. Now, perhaps one of the most bizarre connections between Jesus and what would become Christianity and ancient Egypt can be found in the writings that speak of Jesus being a sorcerer who knew the ways of the Egyptian high priest. Now, some of these writings even speak of him being a shapeshifter. A particularly intriguing ancient Egyptian text was discovered in the early 2000s that appeared to tell of the crucifixion of Jesus. It also, however, claims that Jesus had the ability to change shape and that his appearance changes. It is unclear if these writings should be taken at face value or not. Just the fact that Jesus is mentioned in ancient Egyptian writings is yet another connection between the two seemingly very different worlds. Now, might these suggestions of sorcery be a reference to the wisdom he learned from the Egyptian mystery schools? Now, one of the most controversial claims surrounding the story of Jesus is that it is ultimately a retelling of the story of the ancient Egyptian god Horus. Now, what's more interesting are the claims that both Horus and Jesus had 12 disciples. Each was also said to have walked on water. They both regularly performed miracles, and each of them was said to have been executed between two thieves. Even more interesting was the fact that both arose again after death and ascended to the heavens. Now, when the New Testament was compiled, was the life of Jesus essentially just the story of Horus? And was this done as a clue to those in the know of Jesus' Egyptian origin, while completely disguising it from the masses? It isn't just the Horus legends that contain similarities to Jesus. The writings and creation stories of Christianity can be found in multiple other cultures around the world. And these accounts often predate them by thousands of years, including, of course, those of ancient Egypt. Now, let's not forget the belief of both the ancient Egyptians and Christians in an afterlife. And even the notion of being judged by the gods or God in the afterlife resonates almost perfectly with each other, as do notions of hell in the Christian world and underworld, or duat in ancient Egyptian legend. Now, could it be possible that this belief system goes much further back than we might think? Maybe to a lost civilization that once had a global influence? And if that is true, that influence is still being felt today. Another apparent connection between Jesus and Christianity and ancient Egypt is the notion of divinity and Jesus being divine. In its most basic form, Jesus is both God and a human, and he exists as both at the same time. It is also interesting to note that the pharaohs of ancient Egypt were seen in a very similar way. They were both a human and the incarnation of the god Horus. Even more to consider is that both the biblical Jesus and the pharaohs of ancient Egypt were regarded as being both human and godlike at the same time. There are many connections between sun worship, Jesus, and Christianity. There's also a connection to the temporary belief system of ancient Egypt, that of Atonism. That belief system suggests that the Aten was simply the sun. Maybe that's why the biblical story of Jesus appears to be an allegory for the sun. It is the assertion of many that by the time of modern Christianity, following the meeting at Nicaea, only those in the know realized they were continuing in the sun god traditions of ancient Egypt. Now, most people, however, believed that they were worshiping Jesus, the Son of God. Now, lastly, perhaps the biggest claim that would link Jesus and in turn Christianity to ancient Egypt are those that revolve around Mary Magdalene. According to some, not only was she Jesus' wife, but she was also his sister. Perhaps one of the driving forces behind these suggestions is Ralph Ellis. He has claimed in several books that Mary Magdalene is actually Mary of Bethany, and this would also make Lazarus Jesus' brother. In ancient Egypt, it was commonplace and even expected that a pharaoh would marry his sister. This was to maintain purity in the royal bloodline. So, what would be the reasons for covering up such ideas? According to some, it is simply the desire to remove any connections to the ancient Egyptian origins of Jesus. Just more food for thought.
Thanks for watching this
Just
and
more
all
food
our
for thought.
videos. Thanks for watching this and all our videos. Please, and until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers. And until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers, and have a great day.